Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another live source material. I'm your substitute host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, the book we are covering is The Three Caballeros Ride Again. And we are synergizing with the show we'll be reviewing for a TV party later on this week, which is The Legend of the Three Caballeros, currently available on Disney+, but originally aired a few years ago in Brazil. And these are all based on the movie The Three Caballeros, which Disney put out. Well, let me first introduce our guest tonight. As we do with almost all things animated and childish, we bring on the queen of cartoons, the handmade jeweler herself, the president and owner of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
All things childish. I feel insulted.
Do you not come on for most of the child things that we do?
Yes.
You take your nickname and you like it.
I guess it's better than the girl who's nuts about corgi butts.
This is true. Do you roughly remember when Disney released the Three Caballeros movie?
I will pull it up here in a second. I do remember I didn't actually see the Three Caballeros movie for the longest time. I mean, this movie came out ages before I was born. But I remember having those old Disney sing-along videotapes as a kid, and the Three Caballeros song was on one of them, and oh my God, I sang that song so much, and I drove my parents insane. And then, of course, when the DuckTales revamp came out a few years ago, they brought back the Caballeros for a reunion episode. And oh my God, it's great. Oh God, 1944.
Wow. So, The Three Caballeros Ride Again was first published in the Danish Andersen and Co. The first American publication was in Walt Disney's Comics and Stories number 635 in August of 2003. And we are reading it as part of the Don Rosa library. These are a series of volumes, collections of comics. This is actually book 9 of 10, I believe, that is a compilation of the Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck comics.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not just going to be talking about the Three Caballeros Ride Again. We're going to do the whole book, all of book 9, which is entitled The Three Caballeros Ride Again. But it has a bunch of other stories in it, and these were a lot of fun. I really had a good time reading this. What did you Let me ask you, what did you think of the book overall?
Oh, absolutely. I am a huge fan of the classic DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck comic books. These are so much fun to read. Even if, admittedly, when I'm reading Donald's words, I don't hear Donald Duck's voice in my head, because that would probably cause me to have a seizure.
Have you ever read Don Rosa's The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck?
I actually have it upstairs in my library, but I have not gotten around to reading it yet.
It's really good. I have it too. I found it on Amazon. I bought it from someone's bookstore. It's excellent. I am perplexed that nobody has had the idea or has followed through on the idea of adapting that for a full CGI movie. I mean, it's amazing, and I think, as like an Indiana Jones kind of conservative, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps kind of hero, Scrooge McDuck is the man. He's
absolutely
amazing.
Oh God, absolutely. Scrooge McDuck is one of my all-time favorite Disney characters. He is just so much fun. And I'll give a lot of that to the fact that the Mickey's Christmas Carol, I think, is one of the best retellings of the Charles Dickens classic staple.
What's she cooking? Canary? I love that line.
No, I'm serious. I really love how they're able to boil down and get the core of the story in just a half an hour cartoon, but you don't feel like you're missing any of it. It is really passionate, well done. All the characters that they remodel into each one of the segments. When you got Jiminy Cricket as the Ghost of Christmas Past, you got Peg Leg Pete as the Ghost of Christmas Future. You got Mickey and Minnie as Bob Cratchit and his wife. I mean, it just feels perfect. You know, it's not like other versions where it's like, and of course, here comes this person to play that character, because who wouldn't play that? No, that actually, it does really feel like it was written specifically well for these characters, and it's just very impressive.
Now, I assume you watched DuckTales back in the 90s.
Duh.
So
both the 80s and 90s version and the 2017 version. Now, I will admit that I haven't watched the latest season because I got to wait for it to premiere on Disney Plus, because we actually don't have cable TV. We have our computer is hooked up to our big screen TV, and we just have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and all that kind of stuff.
So DuckTales was actually based largely upon the Uncle Scrooge comic, Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck. Basically the whole Duck universe of comic books that was created by Carl Banks and then taken over by Don Rosa. So a lot of what you get in here actually you see in the DuckTales television show. Woo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Uncle Scrooge is one of my favorite characters too. But, love Donald Duck. As I said, I've read The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite comics ever. I initially had the idea of doing this because just kind of flipping through the Wikipedia pages for various streaming services, I saw The Legend of the Three Caballeros, and I was like, there's got to be a comic out there. And then I found this, and I'm like, all right, so we got to talk about it now. So we're going to talk about each one of these in the order that they appear in the book. How does that sound?
All right, sounds good. You lead, I follow.
Before we get into that, what when you saw the Three Caballeros movie as a kid, what did you think of it?
Well, it's interesting because the movie itself is not done a lot like most when you think Disney animated film. It's really not the same.
It's like a tourism video.
Yeah, exactly. It's very educational. Now, it's still very good. The animation is lovely. It's got some great songs, some great segments, and the fact of how well Disney combines live action and animation in the frickin' 40s is, just amazing in and of itself. But as a child, when you first see it, it's really hard to just want to sit through, because, again, you're thinking, oh, Disney movie, it's like Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, and Moana, and what the heck is this?
Why am I getting a tourism video for Latin America?
Yeah, it's like, okay, why all of a sudden are we watching a live-action woman singing who looks a lot like Carmen Miranda?
All right. So the volumes, the issues, the stories that we're going to talk about in this are as follows. There's the coin, which first appears in Uncle Scrooge number 323. Attack, which is...
How many A's is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7. I just woke up from a nap before we called me. I don't think my eyes are working totally yet.
This one was Uncle Scrooge 321. The Three Caballeros Right Again were Walt Disney's Comics and Stories 635 through 637. The Sharpie of the Culebra Cut, which is Uncle Scrooge 332. The Beagle-Voicers of the Money Bin, which is freaking hilarious, by the way.
That's undoubtedly my favorite of this whole series.
Uncle Scrooge 325. The Crown of the Crusader Kings. This is Uncle Scrooge 339. Forget It, which is also really funny. I'm actually surprised they didn't. I either don't remember or they never did, but I'm really surprised if they didn't. I'm surprised this didn't make it into an episode of DuckTales. Forget It, which is Uncle Scrooge 328. Gyro's First Invention, which is Uncle Scrooge 324, and I believe that's all of them. So,
well, Magica Dispelled was brought back in the new DuckTales series, so who knows? Maybe this will get adapted into a future story.
So let's start with the coin. Okay, this is actually my least favorite of all of these. This was not a good way to start this volume. There was a Family Guy episode recently where Chris's grandfather
follow the money.
Yeah, Yeah, Chris's grandfather gives him $1, but it's like a rare. He doesn't know it at the time, but it's like a rare dollar, and you follow sort of the perspective of where the dollar goes, and that's the whole story, and it ends up being a part of various adventures and everything else. It's not the first time I've seen that; it won't be the last. But that's kind of what happens with the coin here, is that it's unclear if this is a special coin of Scrooge's or not, or what its meaning is, because at first he's like, it's no big deal, and then he starts chasing after it. And I couldn't tell, and this was why this one was kind of a weird one for me. I couldn't tell if it was just everywhere it went, chaos followed, or the coin was magical and was purposely like screwing things up. Because I felt like things were like coming to life at one point. I didn't get this, and I didn't love it, and I generally love all things Uncle Scrooge in the comics, so you want to explain this one to me?
Yeah, this one isn't really my favorite either. I do like the idea of this perspective of a living object and just kind of following where it goes. This is a classic story staple that has been done a lot of times, not just in Family Guy, but you're right, that is what I first thought of too. And it's very clever. It's a really good way to kind of help motivate a story along and see different perspectives. And I like that. But I really wasn't a huge fan of this. I think part of that also is the fact that this may sound weird, but a lot of times I couldn't really follow how the quarter was moving. Yeah. There's some animation scenes where I actually doubled back a couple of times. I was like, wait, did I miss a piece where the coin went flying? How the heck did that happen?
Yeah, generally these are very easily readable stories, and I don't mean like in terms of the narrative. I mean, you can follow the action in the illustrations, and this one was kind of a mess.
Yeah, for example, you have one scene where you have the Beagle Boy standing on a nearby rooftop, using a spyglass to look in on Scrooge as he's opening his money bin, so they can count. Or so they can record the combination. Fairly clever idea, I'll give it that. And the quarter flies into one of the Beagle Boy's mouth and he starts choking. But then he spits it out with them hitting him on the back of the head with the spyglass, which is great. But then it cuts to Scrooge outside his money bin and he starts freaking out thinking he's hallucinating. And you could put two and two together and assume he saw the quarter flying by. And it made him upset because he thought it looked like the quarter he had lost. But I have doubled back on this artwork 5 times. You don't actually see the quarter unless you got these little 3 columns where it's getting closer, and that's supposed to be literally the quarter's viewpoint. But again, considering that they jump back and forth between the quarter's viewpoint and just a general view of what's going on in the comic, it's a little hard to tell. So, it's like you put 2 and 2 together, but you're like, well, wait, couldn't we have actually seen it whip by the window or so? They're just like, you know what I mean? Like a motion blur going past it. We would have been able to figure out that was the quarter in a motion blur. I think just a couple little lines like that would have saved that panel so much.
So one of the things about this collection of comics is how Donald Duck is written. Donald Duck in the cartoons, even in like the Three Caballeros Ride Again, which we'll talk about on Thursday. The Legends of the Three Caballeros. Like his temper is probably like his most defining feature.
Oh, total.
Have
you ever seen the Donald Short cured duck?
Daisy, it is the new me. Daisy, it's the new me. It's the new me. That one.
Yes, the one where Donald completely ransacks Daisy's apartment because he can't open the window.
Oh, that's an ongoing gag at my house.
Oh my god!
When I lose my temper because I can't get my computer to work, or I'm having a podcast problem, or there's some simple thing that I can't get to work right. My wife were here right now. She'd tell you we call it Donald at the window.
At one point, she's probably going to just whip out her phone and start playing The Storm from the William Tell Overture while you're going insane.
Yeah, I have had those Donald Duck moments. He's my spirit animal. But
that's a great one.
One of the things that is really different about the way that he's drawn, and it's not as evident here, but it'll be evident in the next one. An attack is he doesn't have that crazy temper. Like, he's very devoted to Daisy, and he's actually like, when we get to the Three Caballeros right again, he talks about wanting to make sure his nephews are taken care of. Like, he's not the self-centered jerk. That tends to be a big part of the way he's written in the cartoons. Like, and you never saw much of him in DuckTales, so you can't really go by that. That was definitely an Uncle Scrooge jam. But, like, Donald...
Now he is more of a central character in the 2017 DuckTales, but he's not as self-centered. He just has absolutely no concept of foresight. He repeatedly makes mistakes, and it's like he doesn't realize how quickly the ground is going to be pulled out from underneath his feet.
I was going to say, in this comic, he's actually, like, a pretty bright... Like, him and Scrooge have a really fun give and take, Scrooge is always calling him, like, a lazy loaf, and Donald is like, ugh, it's a lot of eye-rolling between the two of them. But they love each other, and they need each other for a variety of reasons. But they have a very, like, antagonistic partnership between the two of them. And Huey, Dewey, and Louie are not, like, the... menacing terrors that they are in the cartoons with him. Like, they're always fucking with him in the cartoons. In this one, and we'll get to it when we get to the Three Caballeros right again, like, they're actually, like, concerned for Donald. And, like, they want him to be happy. Like, it's a very different presentation of the Duck family in the comics than it is in any other medium I've ever seen of theirs.
And definitely more inspiration for the 80s and 90s DuckTales, in which case Huey, Dewey, and Louie, as great characters as they are, in that cartoon, you basically could just lump them together, switch around their hats and their shirts, and you would have no idea which character was which. Same here. There is no defining characteristic between any three of them. They are just... They're practically a freaking hive mind at this point. It's like, call Horde Prime. He's going to get a deal out of these three.
Anything else about the coin?
Again, I thought it was okay. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more backstory when we get a minor flashback to why the quarter is so important. And of course, it has to do with his old flame, Goldie, who has appeared in multiple comics and in the cartoons before. But we don't really get an idea behind exactly why the quarter was so important, besides that it was part of something involved with her. I do like we do get a little bit more background on this later on, but we find out more and more that Scrooge, actually, most of his wealth is tied in investments and such. The money bin is strictly memory money. It's where he keeps coins that have specific memories to him. And I don't know why, I really like that. It kind of reminds me of a scene from that live action Richie Rich movie, which admittedly was not a good movie, but there's a great scene when the bad guy gets into the vault, and it's all junk. It's all toys and pictures and old trophies and stuff. And he's like, "This is your bin. Where's the money?" And the family like, "It's in the banks and the stock market. Where else would we put it?" The bin was where they just put their most beloved treasures that was meaningful to them, but wasn't worth any money. And it just kind of reminded me of that scene, and I really like that idea.
The next one is Attack, and I love this one. This one was great. So, the beginning, and again, this one definitely could have been an episode of DuckTales. This one, you have a situation where there are ongoing assaults on the money bin by the Beagle Boys and what's the
Magica to Spell and
yeah.
I don't know who the other dude is with the bear trap on his butt, but I'm sure he's shown up in other cartoons. I'm just not familiar with him at the moment.
Yes, the money bin makes for a big target, and all of Scrooge's various enemies, and he's made quite a few in his rise to prominence, keep attacking the money bin, and he laments that, like, I am constantly having to defend this thing. I wish I had an early warning system. And so there's a character in these comics called Gyro Gearloose, and he invents an early warning system for Uncle Scrooge at the request of Donald Duck. Donald and him are buddies, and later on in the volume, it goes into how they became buddies and why Donald's sort of responsible for him being a successful inventor. But it's Donald's idea, and he goes to Gyro, and Gyro basically like converts a jukebox to a high frequency receiver so that he can hear discussions of possible attacks out in the ether. Like, there's no science behind this. It just works. It's fine.
It's very NSA searching for keywords.
Yeah, and so it works great at first. You know, they're actually able to predetermine where certain attacks are coming from and get them and minority report these things. They're like getting them before they ever happen. There's a really funny bit with the guy in a car, like blow up his car or whatever. Like, I also have to refer to the manufacturer for this. I
just love because he basically says he's not going to rob the money bin until the TV cameras get there because he wants full coverage of this awesome crime. And Scrooge McDuck and of course Scrooge owns the TV network. Yeah. In fact, I love it. Every time it goes, it's like, yes, this is Scrooge McDuck. Yes, the Scrooge McDuck that owns your blah, blah, blah. Or the Scrooge McDuck that pays for your pension. Or the Scrooge McDuck that pays all of it. I love it every time. It's just like, yes, I'm that Scrooge McDuck. And, of course, he calls the TV network, and he goes, you are not bringing any cameras out. And the thief is like, well, there's no TV cameras out. I'm not pulling this.
Right.
It's like, what's the point of doing this if no one's going to see it? That was great.
Well, in classic Gyro fashion, and really in classic, like, crazy inventor fashion, there's a setting on this thing that is too high. If you set this thing too high, it will not work the way it's supposed to. They are warned not to do it. And, of course, Donald doesn't listen to anybody. So it's working so well, he's like, well, it'll work even better if I turn it up all the way. So,
well, of course, it doesn't help that Scrooge said he'll pay him a fat bonus every time they get an advance warning of an attack.
Yeah. So he's motivated by money. Because at the time that this is written, he's making 30 cents an hour or something crazy thing like that. So anyway, they turn up the volume on this thing, and they start hearing an insidious plot. It sounds like someone's going to march an army on the money bank. And so Scrooge calls the cops. He calls in the National Guard. There's like an array of tanks. And it's like, no matter what they do, it just seems like they're getting through. They keep getting through. Like, the tanks have like shot into an immediate radius of buildings, causing all kinds of destruction in Duckburg. Donald and Scrooge can't hold them off. They keep getting through and through, but they can't see the enemy. Like, who are they? It turns out that the frequency to which they had tuned into was they were hearing a conversation of ants. Ants who were launching an attack on the sugar bowl.
I love that they think the burning lake is like the little moat of lava around the thing, and it's spilled freaking tea on the table that's a burning lake, and they look over and it's a hot pot of tea that's spilled.
Yeah, this was fun. You know, just to see Donald and Scrooge just sort of, you know, having a conniption, trying to figure this out, like totally overreacting, and you know, and how like Scrooge usually gets over. I mean, he's very, like I said, I compared him kind of to Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones didn't always get away with the treasure. You know, there was always some other treasure hunter kind of hanging around who took advantage of Indiana Jones' successes. And that's what, you know, and he won more than he lost, but he lost, you know, a handful definitely along the way. And so that's what happens to Scrooge. And so every once in a while, seeing Scrooge taken down a peg is kind of fun. And that's what this issue was about. And he was so obsessed with protecting his money bin, and Donald was so obsessed with trying to pinch another penny out of his miserly uncle. They missed the obvious, which was it was ants. It's pretty hilarious.
Well, doesn't help that if I read correctly, Donald's only getting paid 30 cents an hour.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's obviously a larger amount when you go back for when this book first came out, but still.
All right, now we get to our title track, as we call it. The Three Caballeros Ride Again. This was a 3-issue story arc. And it starts off like adorably enough. Donald takes his nephews to Mexico for a Cub Scout trip, or they call it something else. But
The Junior Woodchuck Jamboree. Yeah, the Junior Woodchucks strike again. I'm sorry. I always love how in the cartoon, in the books, everything, anytime they need anything, it's like consult the Junior Woodchuck guidebook. That thing had more answers than Penny Gadget's computer.
So, one of the topics that keeps coming up, the nephews keep bringing up that Donald is so hard to get along with. He doesn't have any friends and he's so lonely. Meanwhile, back in the day, Donald was part of the Caballeros, along with Panchito and Jose Caraco.
Yeah, Jose Caraco and Panchito Pistols.
Yes. And so Donald's just kind of hanging around, letting them do their woodchuck thing. And next door, doing a set, but paying less attention to the music and more attention to the ladies, is good old Jose.
And I'm just gonna say this. I know that in the DuckTales universe, you're either a bird or you're essentially a dog. But sweet Jesus, this woman is so freaky looking.
Yeah, she's basically all like human woman except for dog nose.
Oh my God, it's so creepy.
So of course, Jose is smooching up to her, and he runs afoul of the boyfriend, and she's hilarious. She's just like, kill him all over. Just kill. She's like, letting Jose smooch on her, and then as soon as they're caught, they're like, "Go ahead, kill him. I love it." And
yeah, don't you love me, Alfonso? Kill him very mucho.
Yes, it's only a little racist.
Line.
It's fine.
Oh my, yeah. These books came out a long time ago, people. We're sorry that they are not culturally sensitive right now. We at Radulich and Broadcasting Network are not responsible for reading books that came out before the PC era was invented.
Very good. So Jose and Donald
got to cover our asses somehow.
So Jose and Donald make a run for it from the bandit, who's trying to put a bullet in Jose. And at the behest of his woman, which he only came home just to watch his favorite show. Poor Jose. So they go on the lam, and they run into Panchito. And Panchito is doing some gold searching himself in this area where the Spanish church is. As it turns out, Donald, who again is not a dumbass, who actually knows something about history and treasure hunting after hanging out with his uncle for as long as he has, he figures out that the town got wiped out by lava, but there would probably be, but there's a just above the ground you can see some stone, and it looks like it's like a stone edifice or it's like a chimney or something, and he realizes like, oh, that was probably the church, and that's probably where the gold is. So they go in there, and they find caskets of what they believe is silver ingots. And like, oh, okay, we found the treasure. Hooray.
I do love the scene when he's looking down into the belfry, and he goes, I'll bet we'll find more in the belfry, and just next column, he's got 1,000,000 bats flying in his face. It's just, that is so perfectly timed. That is a total Tex Avery moment, and I love it.
Yes. So we skip a few panels and some time. We time jump, and we have all the barrels tied to a donkey cart, which is then hooked to Donald's car, the old 313. They make a big deal out of this. And so they're speeding along, and they get it to town, and they get it on a train. And I believe this is where the bandit finds them again. And now he realizes that they've got all this, barrels full of treasure. He doesn't know what's in the barrels. He just knows like they have it. And, he still wants to put a bullet in Jose. Then he should have the treasure instead.
Well, don't forget, actually, he basically has completely forgotten who Jose is. He wants Panchito because Panchito had the map that he was trying to wrestle away to get to the treasure. Right. In fact, it's like, not you, Cucaracha, I forgot you. I mean this one, the vaquero who had the map of the lost city of silver. It's like, Jose really has no idea how freaking lucky he is.
So now we have a train robbery happening here. We have a battle
after we get them singing their theme song on stage.
Yes, yeah. They do a show. It goes as well as you'd expect. And then they're on the train, and the bandits trying to take their treasure from them on the train. They separate their car from the train. It goes over the side. I can't remember what happens directly after that. I know they figure out along the way, by the time this is all over, that it's not actual silver, it's quicksilver, or as Donald Duck called it, thermometer juice.
Mercury.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty funny. So there's no treasure, but the real treasure, Alexis, Hejna, is friendship. And much to Huey, Dewey, and Louie's surprise, Donald's two good friends are Jose and Panchito, and they do one more performance before Donald and his nephews leave Mexico, and what a grand performance it is.
Friendship might be the real treasure, but I'm still waiting to get paid.
So what did you think of the Three Caballeros ride again?
Oh, this is so sweet. It is really cute. I like it. Again, some of the designs of the other characters go a little uncanny valley from my stomach. But I love getting to see them actually perform the song. I mean, the Three Caballeros theme song is one of my all-time favorite Disney songs. It's so much fun. I love these characters. The train getaway scene is it's very well animated. You really get a sense of the motion and how they're moving. We were talking before when we did the Golden Compass adaptation about how they really didn't handle what we felt was great movement of the characters, and we felt was a little clunky. This is a very good job. You really feel the action of them running around on this train and then moving, and then how it's going down the hill when they uncouple and they realize they're going to lose control and go over the side. You feel the tension, and I love that.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good story. This is something I would like to see actually animated and made into a cartoon of some kind, or maybe elaborated on into a full feature-length CGI movie. I just think, Donald works so well with these two other characters, and that's one of the reasons why I was excited about doing Legend of the Three Caballeros, because I think, this sort of thing where Donald and his buddies go on crazy treasure hunting adventures is a really great idea. And I feel like they haven't done enough with this. So, I was really excited. I really enjoyed this. I don't, we talked about whether or not we should just do this story or we should do the whole volume. And I'm like, there's not enough. We'd be done now. If we only did this 3-story arc. But it was a well-told 3-story arc and definitely worth a read.
Oh, totally. No, I understand. I mean, I guess I remember being confused at first. So I was like, well, this is the only one that ties into the TV show we're going to be talking about this week. But yeah, you're right. We need to talk about the whole thing.
The next one is one of my favorites of the whole volume. The Sharpie versus the Culebra cut, which features a DuckTales version of Teddy Roosevelt. And if you read the Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, Scrooge ran into a couple of different famous people. They were not afraid to throw Walt Disneyfied, DuckTales-fied, real-life people into these stories.
Just think of Scrooge McDuck as the Disney version of Forrest Gump. If anyone else has existed in history, Scrooge probably has run into them and probably pissed them off.
So, this is the story of the worst deal Uncle Scrooge ever made. So, if you've never read The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck and you don't know about some of the other characters, this is where you meet Donald's mother. Hortense. Who, if you think Donald has a wicked temper, you should check out Hortense. And then Uncle Scrooge's younger sister, Matilda.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How often did you read this and think, yep, if anyone's going to do that, it would be the woman who gave birth to Donald Duck?
Yes. There's a lot of guys doubling over from being punched in the gut from Hortense. Hortense is my daughter's spirit animal, I think. She's just, she does not take a back seat. She does not like to be minimized, marginalized. She is woman, hear her punch in the gut.
I just love the scene where they're trying to get the cowboy out of the tree. They're clearly starry-eyed, and the cowboy's like, no, not coming down. You two stay over there. And while you have Roosevelt and Scrooge trying to make a deal in the foreground, in the background, you have Hortense and Matilda chopping down this tree and chasing the cowboys literally off a cliff.
So, Scrooge has digging rights to this particular mountain in Panama. at about the time they are trying to build the Panama Canal. So you have Teddy Roosevelt, who is trying to get this done. You have Scrooge, who is digging for gold in this area, and then you have like a Panamanian general who is trying to turn the situation for his advancement. And so you have three different parties sort of working against one another. Eventually, Teddy Roosevelt agrees that, if he uses his resources to help the digging go faster and find the treasure, then Scrooge will be out of the way, he can get his Panama Canal finished, and everybody wins. So they eventually, Roosevelt and Scrooge find it's like a jaguar cave, and in the jaguar cave are just a treasure trove of antiquities from various. Apparently, this was like an ancient museum of some sort.
Yeah, apparently this was a place of international trade from continent to continent with all the ancient civilizations. We have the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incans, the Mixtecs, the Olmecs, the Toltecs, the Ansazi,
the medium-sized
then a couple
Tex.
other. I learned French, not Spanish. I can't pronounce half of these. But yeah, you've got all of these, this is enough that I think even Indiana Jones would have just, fainted, been like, oh, my Lord. And of course, Roosevelt, who it is actually circular. Roosevelt was a big fan of history, and he loved that kind of stuff. And he immediately is like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. These national treasures.
Right.
We need to display this.
This isn't like in Lord of the Ring or the Hobbit movies where they find like a treasure box, just covered in spider webs. Like, these are antiquities that need to be in a museum and preserved. And of course, Scrooge is like, no, fuck off. I have digging rights here. It's mine, and I'm not giving it up. And Roosevelt's like, bigger picture. And Scrooge is like, no, fuck your bigger picture. How about that?
Yeah, they actually did have the deal written that Scrooge would get everything in the mountain if they dug it up quickly, but Roosevelt says, well, I'm sorry, the terms have officially changed now that we know what's in here. So we get the two starting to box again. Yeah, I love it. It was like, yeah, you should reconsider this, McDuck. Former world champion gentleman Jim Corbett has visited the White House to spar with me.
Scrooge does not care. Scrooge is like, yeah, I'll box your ears. I'm not interested in your gentleman Jim Corbett. In any case, there's like a rock slide, and the whole of this cavern just slides down, and this Panamanian general gets involved. I think at the end of the day, Scrooge was like, fine, you can have it all so that we can get out of this mess, but I get to name my price at a later date. And the later date comes, and refresh my memory, what is it that happens? Oh, that's right. So, along the way, in order to get the information to where to dig specifically, they have to make friends with the Guayam native tribe, and they already don't like Scrooge, so Teddy has to go in there and be diplomatic, and the way to do that is they got to drink the chica, which knocks Teddy on his ass, and they have to do a kind of a weekend at Bernie's to get through it. And so at the end, unbeknownst to Scrooge, he ends up drinking the chica. So he's out cold. And Teddy is like, no. This is when we agreed you were going to name your price. Name your price. And what was established at the beginning of this issue was that somebody had given, like a candy merchant had decided to go stop selling candy and again started and to sell stuffed animals instead. And so the very first stuffed bear that they made for Teddy Roosevelt, and it became known as the teddy bear.
That is historically accurate. I mean, that's why we call them teddy bears.
So that's what Hortense and Matilda decide is worth its weight in gold, is the first ever teddy bear. Now Scrooge doesn't know that at the time. He doesn't know what the value of this thing is until he's telling this story to Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And that's when and I think it's Huey, Dewey, and Louie that hip him to the jive. That, like, you own the very first teddy bear, the thing that, like, the object that was the invention of the teddy bear. He's like, yeah, in the worst deal I ever made. They're like, it's priceless, you dimwit. Like, oh, and then the next panel. So, mind you, like, this is one of those situations where Scrooge feels like he got screwed over, and Donald Duck is having a laugh at him. And then the next panel, after he realizes he has a priceless heirloom, the newspaper headline reads, Scrooge McDuck refuses to part with $10 million teddy bear. When asked for a comment, nephew says, and it shows, like, the various punctuation marks that resemble a curse.
Yeah. Expletive deleted, expletive deleted, expletive deleted, and you may quote me.
This is perfect.
I do kind of like the bit where they're discussing why it's better to cover the treasure, because even Scrooge kind of realizes that it's going to be a mistake to come out with all this stuff. That Teddy points out that the United States Congress would probably try to seize it to fund the canal. Every nation whose culture contributes to the treasure will probably demand their share. And Scrooge even points out that land was previously owned by France. And France, if they find out, could do a double deal and say, wait, we didn't actually agree that part was part of it. So this is going to lead to, like, one of the biggest, international incidents if they come forward with all this treasure.
Yeah. So I thought it was a really fun issue. I like when again, big fan of the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. So Matilda and Hortense play a huge part of that because they're with him for the early part of his journey. I believe in the book itself, there's actually, like, the Donald Duck family tree, and it explains like who's who and what's what and why everyone's a fucking uncle and a nephew to each other. Yeah, I like these old Scrooge stories about how he got his millions. So this was fun. The portrayal of Teddy Roosevelt I thought was fun. I like the twist there at the end. It was the worst deal I ever made. Oh, it was the best deal I ever made. That's fun. So this was a good issue.
It does make you realize just how much the original teddy bear probably would be worth nowadays.
Do you have any inkling as to where the original teddy bear got off to?
To Wikipedia!
All right. Well, you do this one. This next one's a fairly easy one to understand. It's the Beagle Boys versus the Money Bin. Grandpa Beagle is in prison, and his short-term memory is going, but his long-term memory is intact. And he remembers details about the money bin to help the Beagle Boys sneak inside past the vast array of security measures. And so he gives them the information, and the Beagle Boys sneak in to Scrooge's compound through the air vents. And at this point, it's very comical. This would have made for a good cartoon short. You have the Beagle Boy, one Beagle Boy, and none of them have names. They all have prison numbers, which is fun. It's just hilarious to me.
Okay, I got it. I got the information.
Okay,
Toy store owner in 1903. Toy store owner and inventor Morris Mitchum places 2 stuffed bears in his shop window, advertising them as teddy bears. He had earlier petitioned President Theodore Roosevelt for permission to use his nickname Teddy. The president agreed. Let's see here. The very first teddy bear, previously owned by, let's see here. Yeah, passed down to Kermit Roosevelt. It looks like it's currently on display at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History.
All right, there you go. So, the Beagle Boys are sneaking throughout the compound through the various air vents. They all have to split up. They all end up in, like, different parts of the house. None of them actually get to the money bin, that I recall. And while they're there, they keep... one of them finds prunes and ends up not being able to fit back into the vent. One of them... like, accidents keep happening. They keep getting stuck. And all this time, Scrooge is out. So after each and every one of the Beagle Boys gets stuck in turn trying to find the money bin through the air vents, Scrooge finally walks in and literally does the cartoon, walk past each one of the Beagle Boys that's caught in some sort of contraption.
Yeah, he's too tired to notice.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there where it's just like we're so exhausted, so blurry-eyed, so just out of it that that we would probably walk past a king cobra hissing at us, and we would have just looked down and said, "Oh, I need to put that garden hose outside. I'll do it tomorrow. Bye-bye."
Yeah. It's oh gosh, I think it's a Bugs Bunny episode where he's like half asleep, or like sleepwalking along like girders of an unfinished building, things like that.
Yeah, there's a great one where he's holed up where these robbers have staked out, and you got one of them firing a machine gun, and Bugs gets up to go get a glass of water, and he just walks underneath the bullets. He goes, "Low bridge," and he doesn't even, it's like he clearly knows there's something there, but he doesn't really, think about, oh, I should duck so I don't get hit with bullets.
Yeah. Scrooge eventually figures it out, and he calls the cops, and the cops, pick up the all the Beagle Boys who could not best the money bin. That's it. That's all there was to this. It's funny. It's comical to see the Beagle Boys get essentially like beat up by. Like the money bin's not a sentient object, but it gets treated like it at times, like it's defending itself, even though that's not really the case. But that's kind of the fun of the story, is that despite the Beagle Boys' machinations, they keep getting themselves caught up. And they can never get to the money bin. It's funny. Like I said, it works as kind of a short.
Yeah, let's see here. We get one of them one of them basically tries to pull the wires out of a security camera so that he can rob the jewel. He doesn't find the money vault, but he finds the gem cribs, as they're called. I'm guessing they're just rooms where he keeps actually like just gemstones. And he gets completely tangled up in the wires. We get one who stupidly puts his hand on a pressure-sensitive alarm, and if he takes it off, it's going to go off. So he's just stuck there with his finger holding it. One gets stuck in a bookcase. One gets stuck with a toilet seat on his head. And, I mean, come on, anyone who gets a toilet seat stuck on their head, is at least trying to get a good laugh. And I love it. He's just, he can't get out to the other Beagle Boys. Just I'll come back for you with some help. Just stay in the bathroom, read a magazine or something. He reads a DuckTales comic. It's so meta, but I love it. You got one stuck in the bookshelf, and yeah, you mentioned the prunes. One eats too much, and he can't get through now because he's too fat. And oh my God, it turns out that the entrance to the money bin from Scrooge's bedroom isn't a door. It's a slide. He slides into it, which is probably something that everyone has ever wanted to do once they became an adult. It's like, screw the steps. I want a giant slide going from my bedroom to the downstairs. I want it. Make it happen.
Well, just remember, you can't swim through money. We learned that on Family Guy.
We learned that in Physics 101.
I was asleep.
And yeah, I love how, again, Scrooge goes through the whole thing, doesn't realize. And you get that great thing where he finally turns out the light, he gets into bed, and it just suddenly, you just have the light bulb go off, and he's like, wait, what?
Just start doing the math in your head. All right, The next one is The Crown of the Crusader Kings. This is a fun one. This is another treasure hunting issue story where Scrooge, the nephews, and Donald are going after this crown. They got to get Christopher Columbus's logbook first. Yeah, it's very Indiana Jones-esque. They have to go after the logbook. The logbook takes them to Haiti, and then they have to find like a certain. I think at one point they have to go to France for whatever the reasons are, and then from France they go to Haiti. In Haiti, they have to find like a collection of trees, and that's where the treasure is buried that bears the crown. And the guy they meet in France actually sets them up for failure because there's some finagling with the calendar where when they switch from like the Gregorian calendar to the I can't remember the other name of it, the other Julian calendar, they were off by 10 days, so they're looking in the wrong direction at the wrong time through this rusted anchor. In any case, they're set up to either get abused by a local voodoo tribe, or just not find the information they're looking for and go home defeated. So, so this Frenchman who's competing with them can get it. They figure all of this out. They escape the voodoo tribe, and they eventually find the crown. But again, much like in Indiana Jones, there's our Frenchman who's like, nope, I'm a Knight of the Templar. It by right is mine.
I'm not going to lie, I didn't get the twist after that where it turns out that he doesn't actually own it. I don't understand exactly where they were going with this, and I'm hoping you did so you can clear up the confusion.
Not really. I mean, I read it, and I have to look through it again to... I know, like, he doesn't get it. I think... Oh, it ends up going back to, like, to the voodoo tribe. It's like their claim. And I can't remember why it's their claim, but it is. For whatever, it's... Despite the fact that the Frenchman is a Knight of the Templar, their claim is greater than his claim, and so ultimately the crown goes to them, and they're going to use it to attract tourists so they can build up a local economy.
I do love the earlier scenes with the voodoo priest when you got this great scene where Donald kicks Scrooge and he's like, oh, look what I'm doing. I can't help myself. Forgive me. And then the voodoo guy's like, I haven't started working the magic yet. And Scrooge just turns around and gives the death glare to Donald.
Like I said, they have a very antagonistic but loving relationship. It's really funny. So I like this one. Scrooge ends up... The treasure that he does come away with is a cloth that belongs to, I think, his clan in Scotland. That happened to be in the treasure box. So he does come away with something. The Frenchman gets abused by voodoo priests, so, you know, the good wins in the end.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to find out that, how cool would it be to find out that your ancestor was a Knight Templar?
What I liked about this one is that every character... like, plays a role of some kind. Every character has something to contribute. You know, Donald's not a dumbass. Huey, Dewey, and Louie aren't useless. You know, Scrooge isn't undermining himself in any kind of way. Everyone has something to contribute to the ultimate goal and has a usefulness. And so, like, I'm rooting for everybody here. I'm rooting for the whole group of them. I like that... I like that the voodoo guys are, you know, they thought that Scrooge and Donald were ne'er-do-wells. And so that's why they were abusing them. And when they realized they'd been had, they changed it. They weren't just evil voodoo people, because that's racist.
Yeah, I like how they basically say, look, we thought you guys were spies, but if you're actually searching for historical artifacts, go ahead, because that's going to increase tourism around here.
Right.
And that's what we need for this part of... I mean... Yeah, let's say something like Haiti, that would be really good for them. And I like that these guys are very logical. And I love when they throw the voodoo dolls in the boiling pot and they think, and Donald and Scrooge think they're going to be killed. And they're like, what are you talking about? This is how you reduce or how you kill the magic. You're fine.
So, like, this one on the Sharpie of the Culebra cut and the Three Caballeros Ride Again, this is the centerpiece of these comics, which is treasure hunting. And that, you know, they're great little adventure comics with fun characters from the Disney universe. And this was one of them. So, you know, I can't say enough good things about it. The next one is Forget It. And this one's hilarious. This one, again, should have been a DuckTales episode. Mm-hmm. Because essentially, what's the character's name? Magica DeWand?
Dispel.
Magica Dispel comes up with a spell to where if she says your name, you forget a piece of information. And so she casts it on Scrooge and Donald so that she can get his first dime that he ever earned, and which she's going to melt down to do some sort of magic with to make her wealthy. That's the game plan.
It's interesting because apparently you say the name and then whatever you have said in the same sentence, you will forget about it. So if I was to say to you, you know, oh, Mark, you should probably go answer your phone, you would completely forget what a phone is and where it is.
And so hilarity ensues. Like, this is a very physical comedy episode issue. Because they forget what a door is. They forget what stairs are. They forget how to walk. Donald forgets
How
how
to
to talk. And so the chase is on. Like, they're chasing her to an airplane, but they keep forgetting how to do very simple things, and everyone else just thinks they're lunatics. So...
I love the doorman who, after they see him completely fall down the steps and not able to open the door, he's like, remind me to sell all my stock in McDuck Industries.
Yeah. I feel like she gets away, but somehow they're able to have the spell cast on her, and she ends up bringing the dime back.
Yeah, basically, she has these things called poof bombs.
Right.
Which are essentially just over-elaborate smoke bombs. And she accidentally gets zapped with her own wand. Now, and they do point out that apparently Magica's spells only work for 24 hours. They do wear off. So she gets poofed, but at this point, Scrooge has forgotten her name because of the spell, and Donald has forgotten how to talk. So Magica gets on a helicopter and gets away, and she's gloating, and the helicopter pilot goes, "Oh, that's great, Miss Dispel. What was your goal?" And because she's been poofed, then she completely forgets it. So once the spell wears off and Scrooge and Donald are able to go back to the bin, Magica shows up. She's like, "Okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I hate you, but it's like, I hate you and something's wrong." And Scrooge has recovered enough. He goes, "Oh, it's because I tried to give you a cursed coin."
Right.
And when Magica sees takes the first dime out of it, and
chucks it out his head.
Yeah, I mean, you know the story, of course, of Scrooge's first dime, right?
Yeah, it's in The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. I don't remember, and I mean, like, I know he left home at an early age, and like eventually, he starts working for people, and eventually he's able to buy enough equipment and get enough resources to go gold hunting.
I always loved it because the first time takes place in Scotland, and he gets a job as a shoe shine. He's trying to recoup his family's fortune, which had been previously plundered by his idiot ancestors. And he gets a job as a shoe shine, and the first customer he gets pays him a dime, but it's an American dime, and he's still in Scotland. And he realizes he's been swindled. And Scrooge makes a vow then and there to be, and in his most famous quote, "I must be smarter than the smarties and tougher than the toughies," or sharper than the sharper than the sharpies and tougher than the toughies, I think was the original line. And he's always kept that first dime that he was given in the swindle as a reminder of where he came from and what he needs to do to succeed in life.
Yep. All right, this is our last one, Gyro's first invention, which is a flashback episode. We learn how Donald was kind of responsible for Gyro creating his invention business. And part of this part of it's a flashback. Part of it is also contemporary in that, and I guess it had been established in a previous issue, that the bottom had fallen out under Scrooge's money bin. And they can't unearth the money bin because if the bottom gives out, it's going to fall into quicksand. So, like, they can't move it. It's just sitting there. And I think he has, like, a little tiny train bringing it out, like, dollars at a time. Meanwhile, I think, like, the rest of his money is tied up. And so, basically, he's broke for the first time. He's, like, living with Donald Duck. And, of course, he's eating his feelings. I certainly know how that feels. And Donald Duck is about ready to, like, throw him in the street. It's like, he's like, I don't know about you, but I'm not rich, and I can't afford, stacks of pancakes being eaten at a time and plates of sausages. So, Donald goes to Gyro to come up with an idea to get the money out, and we learn how their relationship got started. There was a broken lamp in Donald's home, and he took it to get repaired, and somewhere along the way, Gyro created his little, like, robot helper with the lamp head. With the lamp for a head.
Yeah, something about how he and the lamp collided into his prototype think box, which would transfer thoughts, and it somehow gave that part of the lamp sort of a sentience.
Yeah.
I don't really get how it works, but I'm just going to go with toon logic here and move on.
Yeah. So, basically, they inspect the hole, they figure out that they need a way to lift the money bin up without causing vibrations. And so Gyro invents like a balloon, essentially. Oh god, what it was? It's a plastic. It's like a high grade helium that will harden around the money and then float it up in the air, and which works. They are able to, after various tries and designs, get a hose in there, get a hose into the hole, and fill the hole with this helium, and then it bubbles around the money bin and floats it into the sky. Now, of course, they have no way of controlling it, so they end up having to puncture the thing. And this is where, like, the point of this whole sequence is to get the bond between the little helper robot and Gyro together, because basically the thing saves Gyro's life from almost falling off the money bin. But they're able to get it to a safe place and save Scrooge's money. And then Scrooge... And then he tells him, he's like, I'm going to be very generous and give you whatever you want. And then starts like, well, some of these expenses are your own. I'm not paying for this shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there was ever a Republican deal-making scene, this is it. It's like, well, we need to pay the men who drove the tanker trucks. Why didn't you hire... Well, you didn't need to hire people for that. I could have handled it. Nope, you'll have to eat that expense.
Yes. I forget, what does Gyro end up getting from Scrooge?
Let's see here. Yeah, well, Scrooge first offers like $1 million. Offers him $1 million, and Gyro actually says, like, well, for just using the helium, I can't do that. Let me see, where is the panel? Where he's... Oh, yeah. I guess I don't really see what Gyro gets.
I was going to say, like, did he ever... I guess, like, he helped him establish his business, but...
Yeah.
That's all I can put together there. Any case, Gyro becomes, like, you know, like their personal inventor, and he has his own business. And that's it. You know, Scrooge gets his money back, and he moves back to his mansion out of Donald's home, and everyone lives happily ever after. And that is the end of the Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck, the Don Rosa Library, Volume 9, The Three Caballeros, Ride Again. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun to read. You know, doing source material with Jesse and now without Jesse for the time being, I don't want to just do, every time we do one of these, Marvel and DC superhero stories, and I was like, well, you could do Image. No, my point is, there's a lot of different kinds of comic books out there. I think it's fun to dabble in different types of storytelling. And I thought this was fun. I thought this was kind of a fun way to look at another kind of comic book. And I'll tell you, like oh, Walt Disney, that's kind of kiddie stuff. I'll put this up against a lot of, like, comic books, quote-unquote, that are, like, meant for adults. I thought this was some pretty great storytelling.
Absolutely. It really is annoying that when you tell someone that you read comics, they automatically assume that you're reading action superheroes and stuff. But these comics here, these classic stories, really deserve a place right up there on the pedestals, along with the likes of Marvel and DC. These are classic stories that have lasted for ages. These characters, I honestly think, are just as iconic as Batman and Superman. I'm not, dissing superhero comics in any way, shape, or form, especially since we're going to go back to those pretty soon. But, I love these classic Carl Banks and Don Rosa stories. They are so much fun.
Yep. Hopefully someday we'll actually be able to do The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. It's an amazing book. I would highly recommend it. Maybe we'll do more of these Don Rosa collections in the future if we have a reason to, just because we feel like it. But I think this is good for now. With that said, Thursday we're going to do the Three Caballeros, The Legend of the Three Caballeros, which was, again, a cartoon that aired in Brazil and is now on Disney+. My kids and I binged it on Sunday, and they both loved it, but my son insisted there had to be a second season. There isn't, but at least at the moment. And this thing's a couple of years old now. But at the end of it, he was like, no, it's just like Sonic. They left a stinger at the end. There's got to be more.
I admit that's annoying, but just go put on classic DuckTales for him.
I'll tell you what, he watches the new DuckTales, him and his sister, occasionally.
Oh, which were great.
So there's that. He's watched classic DuckTales. We put those on for him, too. Tomorrow, this is why we moved TV Party to Thursday. Tomorrow, we'll be doing a TV party for AEW Double or Nothing 2. We're going to talk all about the Stadium Stampede. Yay! Wrestling in the time of pandemics. Cinematic matches. Aren't they wonderful? And that's it for this week. Next week, Alexis Hejna will be back for another live source material. We'll be looking at Catwoman, When in Rome. June 2nd is my birthday. And when Alexis is done walking through a haunted house, I will tell you that...
I'm sorry. I had an elderly dog who needed to go outside, and it is unbelievably windy, so I apologize.
So for my birthday, I don't back down from challenges. Before this show, I fell on my face and nearly broke my nose, and I wiped that blood away, and I stepped up and I podcasted anyway, because like I said, even if I die and I have a podcast that night, I will rise from my grave and podcast anyway. And when Robert Winfrey challenged me to sit through an entire season of Devilman Crybaby, I said, what the hell's that, you nerd? But I also said, sure. So that's what I'm going to spend my birthday doing, a TV party for whatever this nonsense is, called Devilman Crybaby, that he says will break my soul. My soul can't be broken, ladies and gentlemen. I am, wipes blood from nose, invincible. And then June marks the return, at least once a week, of Jesse Starcher to the Metal Hammer of Doom. Yes, indeedy. We kick things off June 3rd with Ailstorm, Curse of the Crystal Coconut. Then Static X, Project Regeneration Volume 1. Then Termion Catalot, which Jesse insisted I put on the schedule. Then Lamb of God. And then July 1st, Mushroom Head, A Wonderful World. As for when Alexis Hejna will be back, she'll be back just about every week in June.
You can't get rid of me.
We have loaded up the schedule. We're going to do Catwoman, When in Rome, June 1st. Comic Strip, The Last Days of American Crime. We're going to watch the Netflix movie, and we're going to read the book, and we'll do a compare and contrast. On a special Monday edition of Damn You Hollywood, June 15th, we will be looking at the now straight to Disney Plus novel adaptation, Artemis Fowl. On June 22nd...
I still need to find someone who's actually read that book.
On June 22nd, we'll be looking at the award-winning Supergirl, Being Super, on another live edition of source material. And then we end the month of June with another live source material, Batwoman, Volume 1, The Many Arms of Death. Can you believe it? Got Alexis Hejna all over the month of June.
Maybe speaking of Batwoman, maybe by the end of June we'll also know who's getting recast to play Batwoman.
Yeah, maybe. Could be Stephanie Beatrice, could be Amanda Heard, could be Alexis Hejna. We never know.
Yeah, I wish I had the body to play Batwoman.
All right. That's all my plugs and all my breath. You go, and then we'll get out of here.
All right. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and cheek. We are still under quarantine here in Kansas City, Missouri, and that means that our conventions are still either postponed or canceled for the time being. We're playing this literally by ear and just sort of waiting to hear from the convention organizers on what is being pushed, what is being canceled, and what is getting the show must go on treatment. But for now, we are still open on our online stores on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We are currently having our Memorial Day sale, Memorial Weekend sale, I should say. That's 15% off everything in the stores. And bonus, every order that we get this weekend, you get a bonus piece of Honeysuckle Rose jewelry. So looking forward to that. The sales, it was going to go till midnight tonight on that being Monday. But you know what? I am feeling generous, and I'm going to postpone the end of the sale. And we're going to have it go till the end of tomorrow. That is Tuesday. What day is it? That would be the 26th, right? Yeah. Wow. Calendars have like no meaning in this day and age. And of course, you can follow us as always on Facebook, Instagram, and Under Duress Twitter. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
All right, folks, this has been a live source material. Thank you, Alexis Hejna, for joining me. Be well, be safe, and behave.